You're listening to Aged Care Uncovered, shining a spotlight onto the Australian aged care sector, giving our older Australians and their families insight and a voice. Today's episode is sponsored by Aged Care Ready, assisting elderly clients and their families navigate the aged care sector. Now here's your host, Naomi Anderson.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Aged Care Uncovered. I'm Naomi Anderson, your host, and today I am joined by the wonderful David Quinn. David Quinn helps people sell their long-loved family homes the smart way, where as a seller, you don't ever have to deal with another real estate agent unless you really want to. David and his team project manage every stage of the process, so you know that you will get the best result. They are passionate about having people being able to access their services to make their real estate experience easier than it has ever been. Welcome, David.
Thank you, Naomi.
So let's kick off by asking, what is a vendor's advocate? Because I think up until probably about 2 years ago, I had no idea what a vendor's advocate is. And it's probably best coming from you. You'd be able to explain it much better than I could.
Sure, absolutely. Well, a vendor advocate is someone who works on the team of the vendor or the seller of the property, but is more specifically on their side.
Yeah.
So when I work with my clients, I work absolutely for them as if they would do themselves had they had the background knowledge that I have of real estate, and make sure that they're not taken advantage of, but also we optimize the result for them.
Yeah. Okay. So you're really working for the seller and optimizing their results.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. So that kind of leads me to the question, we've heard about buyers advocates as well. Are buyers and vendors advocates essentially the same thing, or they're on opposite sides?
Kind of the same thing, but we're on opposite sides. So the buyer's advocate will help the buyer and support them through the process. Vendor advocate works with the vendor. Now, what I'll do, maybe clarify that a little bit, because real estate agents by law are supposed to work for the vendor.
Mm-hmm.
And so people would say, well, why not just go straight to a real estate agent? Well, a real estate agent has maybe 30, 40, 50, 100 vendors they're working for at any point in time.
Yeah.
And that doesn't necessarily get you as the vendor the best result. So that's where we come in and we make sure that we assess the options in the area that we're looking to sell, make sure we get the agent is the best fit for selling that property. And then we manage the agent all the way through the process. So that, from a vendor advocacy point of view, is more about that role.
Mm-hmm.
The buyer's advocate helps the buyer. They research the property and they help them to negotiate the deal.
Yeah. Okay. So from a real estate agent perspective, they could have a large list of clients that they're working with, and they're just essentially trying to offload these properties, get them sold as soon as possible, rather than working with each individual to try and get them the best result. And that's where a vendor's advocate would be beneficial.
Correct.
Yeah.
Now, an agent that doesn't necessarily not try to sell each property for the best result, but they are trying to move stock because that's how they get paid.
Mm-hmm.
And if you get, let's say that there's $100,000 difference between what you could get and what they get you. So they get, let's say, $1 million and you could get 1.1. That's $100,000 out of the vendor's pocket.
Mm.
But it's only about $500 out of the pocket of the agent in terms of the extra.
Yeah, so it's no big deal for them. No skin off their nose. Yeah. So vendors advocates and I guess buyers advocates, are they licensed real estate agents themselves?
Yes and no. As a vendor advocate, yes, I am a licensed real estate agent. And as a buyer's advocate, some can be licensed, but they always have to work under a license. So it might be someone, for example, who is for want of a better term, the same as the sales agent in terms of whether they're licensed or not, because not all sales agents need to be licensed either. But as a buyer's advocate, as long as you're working under somebody with a license, you don't actually have to have a license yourself.
Okay, interesting. I didn't know that. So let's relate this back to aged care, because obviously Aged Care Uncovered really does serve those who are going through the aged care journey. Say, for example, I had an elderly parent, my mum, for example's sake, is a widow and we are needing to put her into care. How could a vendor's advocate help us in this situation?
What we do, I'll go take you a bit through our part of the journey, because what we'll do is we'll sit down with the family or the decision makers in that situation. So it might be your mum herself, or it might be you as the family. But then we'll sit down with everybody who's involved and we'll understand what you need to achieve, because there's different routes we could take in terms of preparing the property for the market, but it really depends on what you're looking to achieve and what we think is possible. So as an example, if your mum's house was in need of quite a lot of work, the potential there, and let's say it was on a larger block of land, then there's a potential that somebody could buy it and redevelop it, put two or three townhouses on it, for example. It might also be that we can improve the home in order to get a great result, but also have somebody else move in and love the home as their own home for a period of time.
Yeah.
Which a lot of older people would really like, is my experience. They'd like to have someone move into their house and bring up their family in the home.
It's because it has that sentimental attachment to it.
Right. Yeah. And it won't always, that won't always be the best result, but it may be the best result for the person who's selling.
Yeah. Okay. And so you would essentially assist them with, if mum was going into aged care, you would assist them with setting up the home and things like that to get the best possible price?
Correct. So what we'll do is we look at what the home needs to move to, I guess, a different level of presentation. And that might be painting, it might be new carpets, it might be kitchen, bathroom. We look at what needs to be done and we work out ways to get that done. We will work with our clients to get the work done where we can, and we make sure that the client doesn't pay for that up front, but it will come out of the proceeds of the sale.
Right, so upon settlement.
Correct.
That's really good to know, because I think a lot of the time there is this fear around where are they going to find the money? And I guess even with our services at Aged Care Ready, a lot of people are worried that, yes, they need the service, but how are they going to fund this? So it's really good to know that you can assist them in that those trades and things like that you're going to be bringing in can actually get paid or have a deferred payment, essentially.
Yeah, and that's one of the things I think is really important part of that conversation, because there's what can be done, but what's it going to cost? And generally speaking, what we wouldn't do is encourage someone to renovate their home if it wasn't going to add value.
Yeah.
So with that, what I mean is, if you spend $100,000 on improving the home, you want to be getting $200,000 or $300,000 over the original price range, so that you get the money back and you get some more.
Yeah. So you wouldn't be changing things that aren't actually going to bring them any money in the home. It's more cosmetic changes.
Not always cosmetic, but yes.
Yeah.
It's essentially one of the things that we also need to keep in mind in the context of that conversation is that sometimes it will bring a cash reward at the end or a financial gain, but sometimes it'll just make the house easier to sell.
Yeah. And I suppose if someone's been living there for 40, 50 years and not really done much to the upgrades or make it look a bit more fresh, a home from the 1960s is going to be much harder to sell than something that's move-in ready.
Correct. Absolutely correct. Some people want to renovate, but not everybody, and more people will want to move into a house that they don't need to do anything with.
Yeah. Okay. And so on the flip side, what are things that vendors advocates not do?
Okay. Well, what we don't do is we don't do open for inspections, for example. The sales agent does that. We don't negotiate with a buyer we work with our vendor and the agent, but the agent will negotiate with the buyer. And that's pretty much all that we don't do.
Yeah. It sounds like a really holistic, helpful service. Not too dissimilar from what we do, but from a different angle. So obviously we're helping people find aged care facilities for their loved ones and taking on that process and essentially stepping in like a family member would if they had the time and the energy. But you're doing it to make sure that the whole process of selling that home, which is a very emotional process, goes as smoothly as possible.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay.
We also make sure that our sellers have all of the resources that they need. So it might not just be about improving the appearance of the home for sale. It might be moving all their stuff out. It might be working through their things that they want to take, things that want to store somewhere, and things that they just don't know what to do with. And we make sure that they end up, if it can be donated to charity, we do that. If it needs to go to the tip, we make sure that's done. And we have cleaners and those types of other trades that will, other businesses that will help to prepare the home for sale as well.
So it's not really just about selling the home, it's about preparing the home, downsizing. Because like I imagine being in a home for such a long period of time, there would be a lot of sentimental value there, things that would be really hard to let go of. So having somebody to help do that and coordinate that would be, I know, a big weight off the shoulders of the families.
Absolutely. And that's what we've found is that there are people who really don't want to say goodbye to things, but when we work with them to work out what they really need to keep with them or really must have with them for whatever reason, and the things that can be let go, what's the best thing to do with those things to help them feel good about not having them anymore.
Yeah. Okay. So just backtracking a little bit where, there's obviously concerns about costs and things like that. How much will this cost the client?
They don't pay any more for having us involved than they would if they just had the agent directly.
Okay.
So what we do is we request an engagement fee, which just really just is about helping our cash flow in the business, because we get paid by the agent.
Yeah.
So that can sometimes be 6, 7 or 8 months before we get paid. So we do a lot of work in that time without any money coming in. It challenges the business. So what we do is we request an engagement fee up front, but that then is taken off, is given back to the vendor or the seller or the family when the property settles and we get paid by the agent.
Yeah. Okay. And so is your commission to the agent the same across the board? I'm just trying to kind of wrap my head around the advocacy side of that, because if you would have a different commission based on different contracts, then, you would obviously have the ability to change or select real estate agents over another for those purposes. But I'm assuming that your fees are the same across the board, no matter what.
Correct.
Yeah.
So we have a 40% plus GST split of the commission. So when someone sells their property, they pay a commission to the agent, which is generally 2% plus GST.
Yeah.
And we have an agreement with the agent that they will pay us 40% plus GST of the commission that they've already earned.
Yeah.
Or generated.
And then from a real estate agent point of view, that may seem like a negative thing, but actually you're preparing the whole house for sale. You're doing everything for them to get the best result, and literally just handing them the keys. So I can see how that would work to everyone's benefit.
It's not only that, it also means that the agent's not talking to family members who know nothing about the transaction of selling real estate or buying real estate in some cases. But what we do is we make sure that we bridge the gap between the people who know everything that they need to know, being the agents, and the people who know a lot less, and that being the seller. Because one of the things that we find is that people get taken advantage of if they don't know enough.
Yeah. And on top of that, I think, like I said before, it's a very emotional process, and being there on their behalf and providing that support and reassurance is really, really valuable.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the way I put it for some people is it's a challenging enough time for the family, whether it's your mum or your grandma or you as the younger family who are managing it all. It's a challenging time for everybody. And if you've got to deal with an agent and work out what things grandma's going to keep and work out how to transition all of that stuff, it really is it's not the best use of your time to be dealing with a real estate agent.
Yeah, absolutely.
You've got so much more emotional stuff within the house that needs to be dealt with, and that where you're better spending your time.
Yeah. Okay. So as a vendor advocate, what would you say is your greatest success story?
I had a client recently that sold in Mount Waverley. They had, as an aged client, they needed to move to aged care. And in this particular case, the husband was fairly able-bodied, certainly clear of mind, but declining. He was in his 80s, and his wife was in need of dementia care. So they had negotiated with an aged care facility for her to go into a dementia facility at the place, let's call it, for a better term, and he was getting an independent living unit.
Yeah.
His unit was going to come with some financial benefit if he could settle by the 30th of June on that. But what he needed was to have the money out of the house before then in order for that to happen.
Yeah.
But he didn't want to be pushed to move out of the house quicker than he was ready to move out. So what we did, first of all, is we negotiated with the agent to include, so we included in the contract and in the negotiations that the original resident could stay in the home for up to 12 months after settlement. So we can get it then sold and settled in time for the financial benefit by the 30th of June. But we were able to keep them in the house as long as they needed to be to get things sorted and get out. As it turned out, they didn't need 12 months, only needed 2 months in the house, but we had that as part of the negotiation that they could have stayed there for up to 12 months. In this particular case, they wanted around 1.1 million in the sale. We got them 1.425.
Wow.
And they wanted it sold off market, and we were able to do that. So the agent actually wanted to put it on the market and get it to auction. I pushed back on that and said no, we had to get it sold off market if we could get the right price, and we did. So that was really a good solution for us. And for that client, I also did all of the had all of the resources in to work out what to do with all the stuff in the house. Helped him to get the things that he wanted to take with him sorted. The things that he wanted to put in storage to deal with later also sorted, and then we got everything else taken out, which was a lot went to charity and some went to the tip.
I don't imagine that a lot of people realize that you could do those types of negotiations, because even selling and buying property in the everyday world, not just for aged care, there's a lot that kind of has to fall into place. It's almost like dominoes, that you have to, secure a place before you can sell your place, but then you still need to sell your place before you can actually secure a place, because where are you going to go if your place sells, or what if your place doesn't sell and you've bought this? Like, there's so much that needs to happen in a specific order. So it's good to know that in that instance, a vendor's advocate can and really knows how to negotiate those things, which is amazing. So that's great.
Yeah, and you're right. That particular negotiation for them to stay in the house a bit longer could apply to anybody, but most people wouldn't ask for it because they don't know they don't know it can be done. They don't know the mechanism by which that is done.
Yeah. And I imagine that you would be able to help with negotiation of release of deposits and things like that as well early.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. How can people get in contact with you? Where can they find you?
Find us at the Property Transition Hub, Property Transition Hub, not just www.propertytransitionhub.com, or they can call our office on 8669 2033.
Perfect. Thank you again, everybody, for joining us for another episode of Aged Care Uncovered. My name is Naomi Anderson, your host. Please follow our Aged Care Ready channels on socials, on Facebook and LinkedIn. If you or a loved one is going through the aged care journey, you can also find some community support from our Facebook group over at the Aging Parents Support Group. Thank you, and until next time, see ya.
Thanks for listening to Aged Care Uncovered. If you enjoyed today's episode, head on over to your favourite podcast streaming app and give it 5 stars. If you have any questions about today's episode or about aged care in general, please contact us.